Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Depressed Eeyore, and this is Middara on Tabletop Simulator. It's been quite a while since I last recorded. All my backlog is finally done, but there is supposedly an update coming at the end of September, which is coming very quickly. There's already stuff about how they're changing the update system to hopefully be a lot easier to do instead of the system where I literally have to start a new new Middara module and then just transfer all the changes over. So hopefully that works well. I think they're going to be converting over to like 1.1 or whatever or something like that. And I'm hoping they include the next chapter, but I'm not entirely certain if that's done or not. So I went ahead and I figured I'll go ahead and use this as an opportunity to catch up on some additional lore stuff that we haven't looked at yet, because the back of these cards actually have a bunch of info. So I have everything that we've encountered so far to this point. Now, if there's anything that we didn't encounter, I did not include it. So that lore is not available to us at the moment. As always, I apologize for any rules mistakes I made in the past. Supposedly, I did reasonably okay with the Eiseling fight, so I'm pretty happy about that. There was some. I believe I've done a video about some of the other mistakes I made, particularly with utility cores. Depending on whether or not the update includes those recent changelog changes, the utility cores are going to change anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. I apologize if I've already said this in a previous video, but one of the major changes involves summoning. It used to be limited to one summon per party, with the exception, of course, being the twins, because the twins are always summoned together. Now it's per person. So Remy can have her summons, and if another character happened to have summoning through other means, such as using the Badman's Book of Baddies, which allows you to summon a level 1 or level 2 Esper, you can actually, if it's on a different person, they can actually use that to summon, Elifie or Zulfikar. And then same thing for the tier 4 summon that's available, which is Soulbond, which allows you to summon, Felled Afterlife. Felled Afterlife, which gets you Enslaved Spirits. So technically, you can fill up this entire initiative log with pretty much, 1, 2, 3, 4. The twins will make it 5, 6. Elifie will be 7, and then 2 spirits, which will be 9. So you can have essentially 9 initiative cards on the board, which is pretty crazy, I'll admit. So with that knowledge, I may actually swap some of my purchases and get that additional book, just to show kind of how crazy summoning can get when you have multiples. But I'll think on it until I actually start continuing the playthrough. That being said, let's go ahead and just dive right into this. I don't think there's really anything else I need to update, so we'll start with this time I'm using a mic that won't cut out on me, so hopefully this will go a little bit smoother. So we'll start with the one new enemy type that we ran into, which was Fragors. Glowing curiosities. When observed, Fragors can be seen moving busily about, though not much they do seems to have any purpose. Their bulbs flash with a brilliant light as they bob, and their legs twitch as they pick up rocks and plants and move them around. One Fragor may begin to build piles of debris, only to have another Fragor tear them apart moments later. Due to Fragor habitats existing only in the most remote corners of Middara, little time has been spent studying these strange creatures. Some things are known about them, though, such as their fiercely territorial nature. If undisturbed, however, Fragors are perfectly content minding their own business and staying away from human affairs. Fragors live in large groups, but don't seem to interact socially with one another. It's more like they exist in proximity to each other rather than living together. They also don't raise their young. Fragors mate, lay eggs, and then wander off. Their larvae are planted in mossy patches and left to fend for themselves. An undisturbed Fragor nest can produce scores of healthy offspring. The newly hatched insects will eat their way out of their mossy nest, then spread evenly in search of food. What Fragors are best known for are the vibrant, glowing sacs they grow on their backs. These sacs collect the toxins found in the poisonous plants Fragors eat, and usually begin to color by the time a hatchling is a few days old. These bulbs glow with incandescent light, their color indicating the toxins inside. When threatened, a Fragor could fire its bulb a surprising distance, shortly after detaching from the bug's exoskeleton. The bulb's exterior becomes soft and delicate. Even the slightest perturbation will cause them to burst like balloons, sending a cocktail of vicious poison everywhere. So yeah, the wonderful, the Fragors. We did have a new summon. Both Femke and DM have the same lore stuff, so I just went ahead and grabbed Femke here. A new look. It doesn't fit me, Femke said, pulling at DM's new leotard. I assure you it does, DM replied before striking a pose with her spear. I look fine. Good, in fact. Femke looked at herself in the mirror. She was certain that the tailor hadn't made the outfits identical. She wasn't used to such notable differences, and it made her uncomfortable seeing DM so independent. I shouldn't have had a half-person make my clothing, Femke whined. They never understand what you say when you want the exact same. Oh, stop complaining. It's gorgeous. I look dangerous. No summoner could possibly think otherwise. DM lowered her mask over one eye and smiled wickedly. Ha, humans wouldn't even know. They always wear the silliest things, Femke smiled now too, placing her own mask over her face. I'm hungry, Femke finally said, looking towards DM. Her other self looked back at her before replying. I better hurry then. You never know when the human might summon us. Both girls turned in tandem, walking out of the same changing booth, and out to the front of the shop. The tailor was waiting behind the counter, and from his expression, it was clear he'd been listening the whole time. 50, the tailor said, extending an expected hand. One moment, let me get my coin purse, Femke said, but it was DM who retrieved it from her satchel at her side. Here. Femke continued as DM handed the man a handful of gold. Your work was adequate. Femke and DM then shared lunch at the bazaar, sitting at the same side of the table. The two shared a single meal in anticipation. Their contract had been struck, and it was only a matter of time before they finally meet their new master. All right, and then we got Patrick. There are two different command cards for Patrick. The one without the shotgun and the one with the shotgun. Both of them are the same, so I just grabbed the one with the shotgun. Weaponsmith at Dragon Arms. Patrick always had it easy, and he knew it. From a middle-class family on Earth, Patrick arrived in Middara at the unusual age of 26. Patrick's parents intended for him to work at the smithy and wanted someone physically able. Thanks to his health-conscious foster family, Patrick was in shape before he ever stepped foot into Middara. By contract, his Earth parents had already introduced him to many of the fundamentals of machines and metallurgy. Unusually, Patrick's foster parents were from Middara themselves, and their contracts expired when Patrick was finally brought to Middara. This has allowed Patrick the privilege of having two sets of loving parents and saved him the distress of having to say goodbye. Patrick was expected to take over his Middaran parents' business as a smithy. However, the young man caught the eye of the king when he befriended Balthazar's daughter, Shalis Arson, along with her friends Teriel Jiang and Abigail McCabe. The four attended the Institute of Valenia together. After the elopement of Teriel and Abigail, the four parted ways. Using his clout with the Arson family, Patrick was able to secure a military contract for his family business, allowing them the money needed to retire, and setting Patrick free to do as he pleased. With his newfound sense of freedom, Patrick set out to start his own life in the growing city of Ramstead. He opened a bar and repair shop, Patrick's Dragon Arms. While he could make a fine weapon and a strong drink, Patrick had no idea how to run a business. Luckily for him, one of the earliest patrons seemed to have good advice. I can't remember that patron's name, unfortunately. Let's see if I can find it. That'll be Charlotte. I'm pretty sure it's Charlotte. Anyway, so that was Patrick. Let's go ahead and dive right into Nightingale Maluma Possessed, which does have its own background stuff. Maluma Possessed. Nightingale felt the iron grip of the Maluma deadening her mind, dragging her deep within herself. Sensations went gray. They faded to dim suggestions. Hopefully allowing the Maluma to take control Hopefully allowing the Maluma to take control wasn't a worse idea than she already thought. But if there was anything she could do to save Remy, she would take the risk. The warmth of the Maluma's presence was stifling. Nightingale was almost lost in the strength of its lust to finally have a body of its own, to be free of fear of the shadowy beings pursuing it. It was so old, its memories so vast, that her own experiences barely even seemed to matter. Nightingale strained to see what was happening around her. She could make out her friends gathered around her and staring in horror. Where was Remy? She searched their faces frantically, but her vision blurred. The Maluma tightened its grip on her mind, and her view went blank. Don't worry, princess. Soon it will all be over. I will have a vessel worthy of my power, and you won't have to worry about anything ever again. Its words were heavy, crushing her feeble resistance. No more worries, no more duty, no more fear or pain. Perhaps she could just surrender herself. But she still remembered Remy. She needed Nightingale. There was no way she would give up now. She struggled to the front of her mind again. She stood before her friends, weapon drawn. She could feel the electric excitement of the Maluma, or from the Maluma. She couldn't stop it. It dragged her into the battle against the one she loved. And then we got Eiseling. The adventure card and the boss card have different lore, so I'll be reading them both. Vengeful Vigilante. This practice of stealing people from Earth is banned by nearly all kingdoms on Middara and culturally considered as kidnapping. However, no kingdom is devoid of corruption. The Harbinger who took Eiseling was simply ordered to grab a pretty girl. Eiseling was kidnapped off the streets of Belarus under the direction of a well-connected duke in Brahma. Unfortunately, the kidnapping went awry. Her father was unexpectedly visiting her home when the Harbinger entered, and resulting in a fight. During the conversation, the Harbinger killed her father, and Eiseling was dragged screaming from her home into Middara. The duke took her in with open arms, but the traumatizing event left Eiseling cold. It wasn't until 6 months into her formal education that she discovered what had happened to her and why. Her father was murdered by a rich aristocrat who wanted a daughter for himself. The Duke hadn't known exactly what happened, but he quickly found out. To him, Eiseling was broken. The daughter he had fantasized about wasn't an Eiseling and never could be. As tensions with the Duke began to rise, Eiseling feared for her life and soon fled east to Alenia. Alenia was eager to accept such a connected defector. Eiseling was soon housed in the Institute, where she was given a scholarship for 8 years of higher education. There, Eiseling spent much of her time researching all she could about Middara and who was responsible for her life being torn apart. Her investigation eventually led her to the Black Hand, a criminal organization based out of Ramstead. After graduation, Eiseling followed them there, where she found the man truly responsible for her kidnapping, the man she had seen kill her father. This man was Malik Moretti, head of the Black Hand. So Brahma is another country. I think it's the one that they are having potential conflict with between Alenia and Brahma right now. It's been a while since I've read up in the lore. I am playing this game with another group, but I'm kind of just been reading the cliff notes to them. Dragon Arms Regular. When Eiseling discovered Patrick's Dragon Arms, the building was a run-down shack on the outskirts of Ramstead. She would have missed it entirely if she hadn't seen its tattoo-clad owner wiping down counters through a dirty window. Amused at the man's fervor, Eiseling found herself as one of the establishment's first customers. She ridiculed the establishment for the mess that it was, but the owner hadn't been in the mood to argue. She felt bad for him, as it was obvious that Patrick had opened the business without a clue how to run it. She was certain the place would be closed within the year, but the booze was cheap, and Patrick gave her what he called the first customer discount. So Eiseling returned to the dump of a bar the next day and the next, and soon she was a regular. Patrick was always there to listen to her complain about her problems. Eiseling watched with secret pleasure as the establishment transformed from one of Ramsted's smallest bars into one of its greatest. Patrick expanded his services, hired help, and implemented nearly every suggestion she gave. Oh, so it was her that gave these suggestions. While Eiseling was always hot-headed, Patrick was a voice of reason in her otherwise hectic life. If it wasn't for her intervention, she would have already made a fatal move against Malik and the Black Hand. Patrick promised her that through patience that they could get justice, claiming that the Black Hand's corruption went far beyond Malik. Eiseling always wondered how Patrick escaped the clutches of the Black Hand. The establishment was never subject to typical racketeering that plagued the city. Patrick had even openly declared that the bar didn't serve Black Hand members, and she saw no repercussions. As their relationship grew, Eiseling learned the answer. Despite his humble appearance, Patrick's connection in Alenia went all the way to its former family. As already mentioned, he is friends with Shayless, who is, of course, one of the princesses of Alenia. All right, then we got all these other bosses, so let's go ahead and do the Whopper. Warrior Sickle. Cave sickles are a ubiquitous part of adventuring in Alenia. They seem to be waiting underneath every rock and around every corner. Occasionally, adventurers report coming across especially large specimens. For a long time, these big, aggressive cave sickles were thought to be a whole different species. It is now speculated that there are different types of cave sickles that serve their hives in different ways. Ordinary cave sickles are the most commonly seen and thought to be the scouts and workers. Deeper within their hives, larger varieties can be found. These are the warriors. tasked with protecting their hives from intrusion by humans and other threats. They are usually only encountered near a hive entrance. Cave Sickle's warriors look different from their smaller counterparts, with a pair of grasping claws and a much rounder body. The warrior sickles use a special pheromone to rally their lesser cousins. This means that an unwary adventurer may see an even battle become decidedly unfair as cave sickles swarm to defend the hive. Mercifully, cave sickle warriors seem to only be interested in protecting their homes. They do not pursue intruders too far from the hives. Novice adventurers are advised to flee if they find themselves set upon by cave sickle warriors, as they will usually give up the chase before too long. Cases of massive packs of warriors roaming deep underground have been recorded. It's thought that these packs of warriors gather when a hive needs heavy lifters to clear out sections of earth to expand their home. Luckily, this is a rare occurrence, as a massive group of cave sickle warriors would be problematic for any adventuring party. Much like ants, cave sickle hives sometimes clash with each other over food and resources. In these cases, cave sickle warriors have been seen dismembering each other with gleeful fervor. The display usually leaves onlookers grateful they are not involved. And then our second boss, the Warden. Eternal Sentinel. No one goes through this door. The Master's words resonated in the animate's mind. All that it was and all that it had become served this command. Many had tried to pass, but he had dispatched them all. The door remained closed, its marble surface undisturbed. The animate took comfort in its armor. It was fashioned by the Master himself, a glorious relic of ancient times. Its massive blade was a specialized tool of destruction, capable of cleaving through even the toughest steel. The remains of the last foolish creature who tried to breach the door lay dead at the Warden's feet. It had struggled valiantly, thinking it could pry its thin sickle limbs through a crack in the door. The Warden had stood so still that perhaps the cave sickle didn't even know it was alive. It must have been surprised when it died. The Master must be pleased. The Warden stood still as always, ever vigilant. It wouldn't let anything pass. It had sworn to the Master, and it would never violate its duty. The stench of rotting bodies near the door drove the creatures of the vault away. It was a clever plan devised by the Warden himself, or itself, and one of the Master seemed pleased with. Warden, the Master had called it by that name. It was a strong name. It further inspired the animate to protect the door. Nearby, an old skeleton rotted away with the passage of time. Its frail form crumbled against an inlet in the rocks of the vault. The skull's empty eye sockets stared up at the Warden. The Warden shuffled almost imperceptibly, proud of its most recent accomplishment. After all, the Master was still watching. So it's one of those situations where he says the order was no one goes through this door, and so he followed it, which unfortunately included the Master. So the Master was killed by the Warden. He also killed a cave sickle and other things, apparently, which is probably one of the few times it actually a situation where like monsters actually fight each other in this. All right, Blighted Terror. Intelligent Guardian. Blighted Guardians have plagued Alinea as long as there have been humans to tame the land. The infectious nature of the parasite means that care must be taken any time a Blighted Guardian is seen near a populated area. Fortunately, these unholy nightmares are filled with a mindless drive to destroy and don't think very tactically. Now, troubling reports have surfaced concerning a Blighted Guardian that exhibits signs of enhanced intelligence. A single village has been terrorized by this mutated Guardian, coming in at night to kill and eat any it can find and retreating before an armed resistance can be raised. So far, it has been content to leave the buildings alone, but as news spreads, there are few people out at night, and the villagers worry that it will start attacking people in their homes. This new threat must be dealt with before anyone else falls victim to its voracious appetite. While this Blighted Terror looks like a larger version of a common Blighted Guardian, it is frighteningly intelligent. Anything that can be done to stop any more of these terrors from being created would be a great service to the people of Alinea. Fortunately, this intelligent Guardian has killed all of its victims. While tragic, it has ensured that no one else has turned into similar monsters. When confronted by armed adventurers in the streets, the mutant retreated. They pursued it to a nearby system of caves, but it didn't dare face it on its own territory. There doesn't seem to be any other exits from the caves, so for now the Blighted Terror is held captive. Its hunger grows, however, and it's only a matter of time before it emerges again. So it does mention one of the dangerous features about Blighted Guardians, which is what this creature is essentially an intelligent version of. They can actually create more of themselves by infecting them with their claws or with their bile or whatever it is. And as far as I know, there's no cure. So, Blighted Brute, Mutated Guardian. The Blighted Brute doubled over, vomiting vile ichor across the floor. Blood poured freely from an open wound on its back and a pus-filled growth on its side. The wounded creature sprayed bile that hissed and sputtered as it ate into the stone floor. It tried to stand once more, but fell to its knees. There was a sickening, wet sound of tearing flesh as the creature's chest split wide. Ropes of muscle hung limply from the gash, and its torso began to swell. Shoulders broadened, arms grew thicker, and sinew enveloped the monster's frame. A piercing wail ripped its way from the Blighted Terror's throat as it transformed even further. It reached up, grasping at its head, which pulsed and throbbed visibly. Veins bulged from its neck as it arched its back. Suddenly, the top of its skull exploded, spraying gore all around. A barbed tentacle shot out of the opening, lashing out aimlessly as it grew. Bone shattered and jutted out of its forearm before falling to the ground, pushed out of its flesh by more tentacles as they emerged from its elbow. It was unbelievable that anything could survive so much trauma, even at an unhuman monster like the Blighted Terror. It shuddered once more before falling prostrate. It was a tangled mass of flesh, a grotesque mockery of nature. It rose to its feet, new limbs flexing and stretching, its tentacles covered in wicked barbs, whipped around the mutated blasphemy as it turned its faceless ruin of a head back toward its assailants. A deep rumbling bellow blasted from its chest, and it charged back into the fray. Alright, we'll read Melody first. The subjugated oblation. Dear Scarlet, oh God, where do I begin? I hope you aren't mad at me. I hope you never find out what happened to me. But if you're reading this, please forgive me. I couldn't enjoy my new life on Middara knowing that I could have done something to save Oliver. The advancement can save him. Oliver doesn't have to suffer. I just had to find a way to bring him here, to get him out of that damn hospital he's been stuck in. It's dangerous, not just for me, but for you too. If you were here, I know what you would do. I know what you would say. You wouldn't be afraid. You were never afraid. The Black Hand told me there's a way. They told me over and over again about the consequences. They said that I'll lose myself, and the creature they're going to put inside of me will absorb my psyche until we are one. I don't know how it all works, or even what it even means, but the organization has promised to bring you and Oliver to Middara if I volunteer. I'm going to do it. I should have done it a year ago, but I was too afraid. Now I pray every night that I didn't wait too long, that Oliver isn't already. God, I can't even write it. Please, Scarlet, he's everything to me. I hope saving Oliver from his illness and saving you from that hellhole of a home will make up for leaving you, both of you. They're waiting for me now. I fear my sacrifice will go unnoticed. It scares me. I'm such a coward. I guess that's why I'm even writing this. Deep down, I hope someone reads it and thinks I did the right thing. I hope you think I did the right thing. And then the closest of bonds. While twin Servani seem very similar to humans physically, they have some differences that distinctly separate both their physiology and culture. Without exception, all Servani have a twin. They are born, live, and typically die together. Servani are seen as a single entity by other Servani, and it's not uncommon for them to refer to themselves as a single person. Culturally, this brings about some strange differences. When Servani fall in love, it's always in pairs, meaning that their relationships are always in sets of 4. They mate in pairs, and the resulting pregnancies are almost always simultaneously successful or simultaneously a failure. This means that despite being from 2 separate biological parents, the offspring is always a set of identical twins, born in pairs, one from each female. While the pair of twin Servani do not seem to truly share a single consciousness or telepathic link, they are as close to being one person as 2 minds can be. In fact, twin Servani seems to be able to survive just fine without their twin, despite an overwhelming taboo against even discussing it. Those who separate from their twins are typically treated as pariahs, expelled from their homes and forced to live in isolation. However, very few Servani ever choose to leave their twin voluntarily. More often than not, the Servani is only without a twin if their other half had met some horrible fate. When a Servani is left alone, the solitude tends to drive them insane. They are so dependent on their twins that when one dies, the partner is expected to commit ritual suicide. Religious customs amongst their people believe that their souls should be sent together to the afterlife. The reasons that twin Sylvanas become espers are as varied as humans who opt to be summoned to other realms themselves. Each have their own agenda, known only to them and their twin. One thing that is always in their summoning contracts, however, is that they not be separated from their twin. This is usually seen as a bonus to summoners, as they get the assistance of 2 for the price of 1. And there you go. That should catch us back up. As always, I'll let these kind of build up and read them once we get to certain points. Next week, if there is no video, it's probably just me waiting for the update to happen. But hopefully I don't have to wait too long. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Sorry if it was just nothing but lore. Next time we will be diving into the Chapter 3 stuff. We may make some adjustments to what we bought and go from there. In fact, what's Nightingale have right now? I may try something different with Nightingale. I haven't decided yet. But as far as what we're going to do first, usually if it's your first time playing, you go in order from top to bottom. I'm actually going to probably do the second mission first, since I know what the first one is. Because I want to be as prepared as possible for that particular one, depending on what decision I make. But anyway, that's just some foreboding stuff. So until next time, I'm the Depressed Dior, and this was Middara on Tabletop Simulator. See you guys next time.